Got a little.
All right, so we're here with another randomly decided and placed live. Just waiting on a few pieces of equipment out of order and make things a little easier for myself going forward. Let me grab my lighting. That's a little better. So I wanted to talk about a few things and just again get used to doing these just frequently, or as frequently as I can, given my work schedule. So first off, shout out to Replay Game because we're not there yet where we can get a lot of people coming in. I know it's Friday, people got what they've got going on, but again, practice runs good for Replay Game. So I think if you're not on a rock or hard place, you can see today that what was it, Jimmy Kimmel, Walt Disney Company, ABC's own Walt Disney Company saying, this isn't what we want. So let me just play around with these settings. So yeah, Jimmy Kimmel's television feature hung in the balance Thursday after ABC suspended his late night show following the host's comments about the assassination charge, leaving network's parent company to decide whether supporting him is worth the risk of his business. We're seeing a lot of this, right? A lot of this, and it seems like no one is safe. I saw something about Tom Hanks as well, but I might pull that up later. But it goes in line with what we've been saying from time to time again, that this is a dangerous time in terms of for us understanding the difference between freedom of speech and freedom from consequences of said speech. You can say what you want, but you just may be out of a job. And I think we got used to the idea of saying America is home of the free, and you can say what you want. And we used to think there was no consequence for that saying, for whatever you wanted to say. But the reality is apparently quite different. And I don't think anyone should lose their job for especially what he was saying. But what you have to adhere to whatever your employer says. Whoever your boss is your boss. That's really the end of the story. Right, give me 1 sec to check on the side of that. Any better? Give me a thumbs up if you hear it. If the sound's any better now.
If you can hear me clearly, let me know. Sometimes I got too many things going on, and sometimes technology fails us when we need it the most. I'll just keep checking the chat as I keep going. So like I was saying, that with Jimmy Kimmel, okay, great. Thank you for that. Yeah, you're free to say what you want. You're just not free to have that job. And I think everyone is paying attention and really seeing that what's happening now is America doesn't have the freedom of speech. America has the freedom of speech. It doesn't have the freedom of consequences, right? That's really the problem right now. So while many people don't feel like what Jimmy Kimmel said was wrong, and I can see where it feels like there's elements of truth in there, and we'll go over it just in this article. I got a bunch of articles today, so we can guide ourselves along. 2 other companies that operate dozens of ABC stations came out against Kimmel, and they were being cheered on by Trump administration regulator, who can make their life difficult for ABC's owner, Walt Disney Company. A quick aside. Like many of you growing up, I like, Disney, right? Disney. I don't like what they did to Marvel. I don't like what they did to Star Wars. And I could probably rant and rave. I may rant and rave after this Jimmy Kimmel segment about that. But Kimmel made several remarks on his show Monday and Tuesday about the reaction to conservative activists killing last week, suggesting many Trump supporters are trying to capitalize on Kirk's death. It's a nasty time, and I can see his point. The MAGA gang is desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can score political points from it. I can see that, right? And it seems like an innocuous thing to say. And as far as critical things or how people have said things, that's pretty tame, right? The MAGA gang comment, yeah. So I can see people saying this is an opportunity for one side to sweep the board clean. using this assassination to say, we told you so, we told you so, we told you so. There was you know I think Trump was talking about putting, that people have to get these licenses to be, to be newscasters. Again, we start getting dicey when we start taking control of some of these things. That's when freedom of speech, you can directly put your thumb on it and say, you can't say this, otherwise I'll yank your license. That's a very dangerous, game to play. But for now, it shows people you should know, forgive the French, forgive the term. You should know who your daddy is. You should know who's paying your check. If they don't like what you're saying, they're going to use you as an example. This, is it curtailing free speech as we know it? Yes and no. You can say what you want. You just can't use our platform to say it. In the same way YouTube does the same thing. There's certain things I can't post, or YouTube, instead of saying, hey, you're not allowed to do it, we'll just de-incentivize your videos. We won't push your videos like we push other videos. We won't monetize your account. Or if it gets that bad, we'll just completely remove your account. We've seen that happen. We've seen things like, say, Fresh and Fit. Fresh and Fit had an amazing run. Hate them or love them, hate whatever the content. We're just talking about the popularity and how well they were able to galvanize support and attract people again and again and again and again. Sure, yes, was it largely, some negative sort of comments or remarks? Yeah, but when they started toting that political line and having people with certain political views on there, YouTube said, all right, you can make your videos, you just can't get paid from them. So is that freedom of speech? Yeah, you can still say what you want, wherever you want, just not here on this platform. Right? And I think that's something we have to be wary of. Once you agree, you have to say whatever you like, but the subject to the consequences of it. Yeah, you're subject to those consequences, especially when you're employed by a private institution as public funded utility. We see that that's how people use leverage. Hey, you don't agree with what we're doing, we'll yank your funding. Right? We'll just yank your funding. Not going to be made about infringing our freedom of speech. However, this is as far as we know, it's a private institution. Yeah, these are private institutions, and they get to say, we're not privy. Like Brandon is saying, we're not privy to some of these conversations that are being had at higher levels. Someone is probably reaching over, right? Reaching over an ABC, and saying, hey, we don't like what you're saying here, right? Get your man out of pocket. And they have enough leverage now. ABC is like, yeah, we should. Whatever our relationship with this person is, we think it's more valuable than whatever our relationship with the talent is, right? And we can always cultivate another person in that spot that knows better to toe the line. I think we should always pay attention who replaces in this spot. Who's the next one that's going to come in there? Will they do the same things, or will they absolutely no? I'm very well aware who is signing my checks, or where my direct deposit comes from, and I'll keep my mouth shut on that. The chairman of the Federal Communications Commission, Brandon Carr, said Kimmel appeared to be making an intentional effort to mislead the public that the man accused in the fatal shooting was a right-wing Trump supporter. Authorities say 22-year-old Tyler Robinson grew up in a conservative household in southern Utah, but was enmeshed in leftist ideologies. Look how far we're going from, the awfulness of the incident itself to now we have to, and we do this with so many, incidents like this that happen. We tear them apart, and we like to look at causality and who can we blame for something like this. And then we want to tear apart that person's life and say, well, this person said this is person this. And now we want to take that and then lay that at the feet of whatever group and say, you people are responsible for this. It's your fault. And then we use that pressure further and further down the line. Kimmel's not commented on suspension. I think right now it's past suspension. I think they said we're done. We're pulling this. His word to say Carr misread the comic, what the comic said, and that nowhere did he specifically stress that Robinson was conservative. I think, again, this is a good case to say we're trying to clear the board. Jimmy didn't do anything he hasn't done in the 20-year history. Yeah, it's on brand for very mildly roasting people in the public sphere. It looks like it's a good way to clear the board, to get rid of anyone and if we can get rid of someone like Jimmy who didn't say anything crazy, who else can we go who maybe took more of a bite of that apple? So it's an easier thing just to keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing. So I think it's something that we will, pay attention to and see what happens. President Donald Trump said Kimmel had bad ratings and should have been fired long ago. So, you could call that free speech or not. He was fired for lack of talent. Trump said Thursday at a news conference in Britain, later while returning to U.S. to board Air Force One. What did he say? He said federal regulators should consider revoking broadcast licenses for networks that give me only bad publicity. Now, that's on brand for you, President. All right, that's very much on brand. And again, this is something that we kind of know is we can kind of see on our own eyes that this is happening, whether or not you agree or disagree. My point is that Charlie Kirk, the assassination, murder, I think that's a terrible thing. I think, my heart is always feeling for the ones that left behind, that the left is sort of in this mess to deal with that. And after that, I'm out of that conversation. Do I think we should be very careful about what we say, and if we're not self-employed and we can weather the storm of whatever says? Yes, I think it highlights how divisive we are right now, especially how easy it is to reach out and touch someone. Pablo, Jimmy always plays around with remarks, and again, not really even that wild of a thing to say. He wasn't wild with anything he had to say there. But if the network itself gives poor ratings to our president, then this is, hey, we got you out of pocket. I mean, I hope he's been on for quite a while. I hope his pockets are fat. I hope he's on. So I have this other article specifically about the FCC chair, Brendan Carr, saying we're not done yet, seeing the consequences of shifting media ecosystem. Lodato, can you recap exactly what happened to the best one? So Jimmy Kimmel, on his show, he went and said, hey, I think what this is looking like is an opportunity where they took the shooter and they're tearing apart his life. And they're trying to say, he's saying that these MAGA gangsters, this MAGA cult is looking to do whatever they can to make it seem as if the shooter wasn't a conservative. And particularly on, I think CNN, Dana Bash was interviewing someone, and she was like, what does him dating a transsexual have to do with him shooting Charlie Kirk? And it was this uncomfortable, tense-filled moment where it's like, okay, if we're just looking at his political leanings, if he's conservative and he shot Charlie Kirk, then it would be something like the conservatives have to answer for it, which is not something I agree with. I think it doesn't matter what party you're affiliated with. That doesn't mean that the party is responsible for your actions. Like, we're all adults. If I go out and do something, can you blame my mom? Can you blame my siblings for whatever my actions were? Especially when we live in America, and we say, yeah, you kind of do what you want. So instead of looking at him as specifically as this man did the shooting, let us learn what we can from him. Jimmy Kimmel is basically saying they're doing everything in their power to shift him from conservative to shift him as a leftist. That way we can now, basically attack all the leftists or any Democrat, and we can use this as a galvanizing point for us. That's what Jimmy lost his job for, right? Yeah. Jimmy mentioned that MAGA completely missed on who Kirk's murder was. Yeah. And then he joked about Trump grieving on Kirk's death. This is, again, mild. And we see people without these spaces, without these platforms, saying something just defamatory, or even celebrating that the man was killed. Some of these people have lost their jobs. Some of these people's husbands or their significant others have received death threats. And it shows you just how charged right now our political system is. We've really ran down the two-party system where identity, and not just simply identity politics, identity or how you feel about one group becomes exactly who you are. That's it. That's full stop. You're this, and everything attributed to this group is who you are. Like, you're from New York, so everything that New York believes in, you believe in. We see that so much. But let me continue. Federal Communications Commission Chairman Brendan Carr said Thursday ABC late night host Jimmy Kimmel appeared to mislead the American public about facts regarding conservative activist Charlie Kirk's killing in the days leading up to the show's suspension. Carr also told NBC's Squawk on the Street that we're not done yet with the changes in the media ecosystem and the consequences of President Donald Trump's elections last fall. This is now going to be a thing. This is going to be in full swing. This is what's going to happen. ABC on Wednesday night said it's pulling Jimmy Kimmel's Live off the air indefinitely because of the host's comments, which linked Kirk's alleged killer Tyler Robinson to Trump's Make America Great Again movement. The issue that arose here, where lots and lots of people are upset, was not a joke. I think when you have comedians in your late night spots, they make jokes, right? They make jokes. And even remember when Dave Chappelle came out of the woods and returned to us, a bulked up, Dave Chappelle, right? And he basically, one of the things he was saying, and he came under fire for making jokes about the LGBTQIA community. But one of his points is like, you have to be able to make jokes. You have to be able to do that. It's when we've become so, and it's funny when we become so overly sensitive to words, and it's a thing that typically the conservatives have championed, saying we're being too sensitive. Was the term snowflake? Right? You're a snowflake, right? You're a leftist snowflake. We went so far with that, and the right was supposed to champion getting back to a harder America, like the ones that fought the Nazis, right? The ones that crossed the river and saved the world. But then, aren't they kind of using that same excuse and saying that these words were so hurtful and wrong, and then we're gonna, he's misleading? You're allowed to be wrong, right? Yeah, Tracy Morgan got canceled for LGBTQ jokes back in the Patrice O'Neal. Shout out to Patrice O'Neal. Right, but yeah, getting canceled. One of the things Patrice O'Neal, shout out to you from Phoenix. One of the things Patrice O'Neal famously talked about, what didn't really broadcast about a lot, was that his career, for as talented as he was, and go back and watch the stuff, he's talented, he's great. For as talented as he was, his career was he had a very low ceiling for his career, mainly because some of the jokes he threw out there. And this is before we had a full-on cancel culture. This is before we had a South Park that told us what cancel culture was and how it felt to be canceled, right? This is before that. But we knew there's always a way, there's always a mechanism for larger society to say, no, you can't do that, right? So, one of the things I also want to address in this, and I'll get to that later, just like the negativity online. Right? I see all these jokes and people just come in to say that. Truthfully, I kind of pity you guys, right? I really kind of pity you guys, because I've never been criticized by someone doing better than me or my level. Once you get to a certain spot, once you get to that spot, people aren't here to sit there and critique. It's you've made something of yourself to get here. And all that talent, all that hard work, everything it took to be you, everyone there has done it, and everyone recognizes it, right? And everyone recognizes it. What's going on, Charlie? And everyone recognizes, and everyone acknowledges that. It's like when black men, when you oversee, right, and you see someone else and give them the head nod. It's like, hey, I see you, I recognize you, full stop, right? It's that level of respect. People, oh yeah, I love Norman Mars, right? But I like to say this point because it does not bother me, because it just shows where you are in your life. And yeah, I more or less pity you than feel anything for it, right? You say that, hey, good for you. Have a good time with that. But back to what we're talking about, it does seem that there is a concerted effort for society to always say, hey, this is what we do. This is how we get you online, right? This is how we get you back on brand. It's what shaming used to be. It's what the way we used to move, how we used to get people back in line. And before, we had institutions that socialized you. We had institutions that kept you on the sort of moral framework that we wanted as a society, right? We wanted you to basically, hey, adopt these values, do these things, become a cog in the machine, and we'll give you the thumbs up. We will consider you successful. What happens instead when some of these institutions, their ability to affect us, especially our children, was eroded by society, by our connections, we don't have another way to do that. We don't have another way to actually get you back in line. So what do? We work in the shadows. And I'm not someone like, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I do enjoy conspiracy theories, especially I enjoy the passion people have when they talk about conspiracy theories. But one of the things that you do see, like back to Patrice O'Neal, there is a ceiling that hits you. And it doesn't matter the amount of effort you put into something. That ceiling exists. You may not be aware of it, but you can see the effects of it. Right? It keeps you where you are despite you getting better, getting more talented at your craft, outputting more. There is a ceiling. It's like, starting out, it's like my experience starting out here on YouTube. There are things that I think, hey, listen, this is going to really hit. This is a great topic. It's a point. But the algorithm is saying you're not there yet, right? When you compare yourself and your output, you can do the same video someone else, say like Anton Downs does. Shout out to Anton, right? There's no way Anton's going to see this. But you could do a topic he's doing. You would have the same insights. You can even cover it better because this is just a little bump to him. But this is your video. This is your topic. This thing resonates with your life. And the algorithm says, we're not going to treat you like a mega huge creator. So your stuff is not, you don't have the views, you don't have the eyes on it. That's the ceiling, right? That keeps you where you are, that keeps you in line. What can you do? You just keep working. Just keep working, right? In this sense, say with Jimmy Kimmel, it seems like there's going to be a sweeping award, like Carr said. It was not making fun, said Carl, who hours before Jimmy Kimmel's show was pulled off the air, suggested the FCC might take action against ABC and its parent company, Disney. It was appearing to, directly mislead the American public about a significant fact that probably one of the most significant political events we've had in a long time, for the most significant political assassination we've had in a long time. If that's the take they're using, it becomes a very easy thing to, again, change the entire landscape. Again, this is terrible. This is terrible. But punch a Disney in the gut. Yeah, I don't feel so bad about it, right? I don't feel so bad about it. Just because of, for such a long time, for 10 years, we had great Marvel movies. They're fantastic Marvel movies, right? And of the Avengers in that entire 10-year lineup, the best movie there was easily Winter Soldier. If you disagree, I don't know what to tell you. Outside of you being wrong, and it's a shame that you are wrong, but I feel for you. I really do. I feel for you. Why was Winter Soldier the best movie? No one clearly asked. It was the best movie because you didn't have big powers, and it was a bromance. A super soldier finds his super soldier best friend, who he thought he was missing, and he's brainwashed and bringing up a great idea. Should you be exempt from crimes if you were brainwashed and they made you do it? That's probably what we should be fighting over instead of this, you said this and we're going to shut down your entire business as Jimmy Kimmel. These are questions that matter. So yeah, Disney gave us all this great stuff, right? Disney gave us all this amazing, amazing, amazing stuff. Like Cash App, please. Listen, I don't want to say your name, because again, if my mom watches something like this, she's gonna be like, where'd that come from? But yeah, so that's the only reason, and then after that, I think we didn't have great Marvel. We didn't have that same epicness of the Marvel movies. So that's the only reason Disney deserves like a fat lip for that. But outside of that, Finally Chemist, yeah. Those movies were good, but they got greedy. It was creativity and more intended to make the next $1 billion. Yes, okay. Fair. Like, between Infinity War and Endgame, you could have put a 3-hour movie about melting butter versus melting cheese, and it would have done $1 billion. Fair. But was Infinity War great? Right? Was Infinity War great? Yes. Was Endgame great? Yes. Right? That's fair. That's fair. That's fair. You're right. They did get greedy. They reached too far. You know, I don't take it away from anything that the whole society is feeling. But I really do feel like the digital age gives a small number of voices a really broad impact, a lot of air. Yeah, yeah. It's in a way you can think about it as the most democratic we've been in the way of voices being heard, and that shows us probably back to the Greeks, back to how the Greeks and Romans, how they tried to govern and why you actually ended up with a Caesar. It's very hard to hear so many disparate voices when I don't have to be honest here, right? I don't have to be honest. I can hit record and I can lie to you for an hour straight. And as long as I make things believable, you'll go with it, right? Because you don't know. You have, I think, again, we have this bias with screens. We think that someone in front of us is telling us the truth. Because why would they come here and just lie? But then we see examples of people coming here and lying, like they're getting exposed, or you're giving some such and such advice and you don't live that life, like Sadea Khan, right? Or Cheyenne Bryan, or our favorite Derek Jackson, our absolute favorite Derek Jackson, right? I want to tell you these things, but I'm just here to line in my pocket. So it's a difficult landscape to sort of move on, but we all have to adhere to whatever platform we're on. That's our boss. We have to do it like that. Um, I guess Jimmy's spot will be replaced with Apprentice return reruns. I think that would be a little too much on the nose, right? I think that would be a little much too much on the nose. Um, yeah, but again, I think, yeah, Marvel did get greedy, but at least we had great runs to show for it. I think some things were conveniently done, like why wasn't Thor around for Civil War? Probably because it would have been a very one-sided thing. But at least we got that epic fight where two bros take on a billionaire, a tech billionaire. One happened to kill his parents when he was under hypnosis and drugged. Who's right? That would be a great like Marvel, like that would be a great little segment to do on YouTube. Uh Happen again. You know, that's my point of view. Utah court documents filed Tuesday in connection with the murder charge against Robinson said his mother told investigators over the last year or so her son had become more political and has started to lean more to the left, becoming more pro-gay and trans right oriented. If that's what is that tends to happen. That's fine, right? Those documents also say that when Robinson was asked why he killed Kirk, Robinson explained there's too much evil and Kirk spreads too much hate. And this is essentially the problem. This is essentially where we start to lose ourselves and we become unable to actually have these real discussions with people. That instead of defeating someone's argument, you can couch all this in the feeling as if I'm destroying evil, and that should be always seen as a highest good, and it's just too subjective, right? Extremes of both sides ain't good. You're absolutely right, because just as easily as we've got this picture painted, we can flip it. You can find someone on the left talking something that is to them they're very passionate about, where they can say things that the other side will say, yeah, instead of engaging you with a dialogue, I'm so far on this other side, I want to remove your evil from the world. And then we're just caught in this, cycle of constantly trying to eliminate the voice of the other side. Or what very likely may happen is we end up going full commando and saying, I'm going to now really police what you're saying online. I'm really now going to have to be as invasive as I probably already am into your life, into your existence, and telling you things and monitoring who you're talking to, what you're saying, what your beliefs are, and then what we see a lot of, right? When we look at how we tend to prevent terrorist attacks, what we end up doing is entrapping, right? And it's essentially entrapment, but not entrapment, right? Oh, if someone wants to create this, commit this sort of event, well, he needs certain supplies to make it happen. Well, we just happen to have those supplies. And I've been engaging with you back and forth for months, for a year. And then when you buy the things from me, they're inert. But I already got you on the sale. And then there, you're gone. Now imagine that just done with your words. Imagine that you're trying to talk to someone or express your views online, and someone's there agreeing with you. You're creating this echo chamber for both of you, and you think you're just venting and it's safe, and it's just me working for the NSA on the other side, typing away, laughing, and just building a case against you, sending over to my liaison at the FBI. Right? That's all right. And to the NSA, if you are watching, this is all a joke. Right? This is all hyperbole. It's all hypothetical. I don't think that's we're there yet. But you think about, for those of us old enough to remember life before 9/11, going through the airport to what life is now. That's where it is, right? Those documents also say that when Robinson was asked why he killed Kirk, Robinson explained it's too much evil. A day before the documents filed, Kimmel in his show's opening monologues, the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. That is kind of the life we live at, right now. That's where we are. All right. Prosecutors in Utah appear to be preparing to charge that 22-year-old Tyler Robinson killed conservative activist Charlie Kirk in Utah last week because he disagreed with Kirk's anti-trans rhetoric. Right, and we already did a number about why. Oh, this is the roommate he was dating. This roommate was transitioning. That's enough of a motive, or enough of a reason to say he's leftist. Because no conservative would be dating a man. Although there's articles about saying that every time there's an RNC, the Grindr app crashes in that area. Instead of just accepting, hey, this is who I am, this is what it is. It doesn't matter my political affiliation. That's fine. You can do that, right? You can do both things. The presumed motive has added fire to the rational speculation by high-reach conservatives who have suggested that the motive equated to a political ideology. The same day Kirk was killed, President Trump claimed the shooter was a radical leftist. Others have suggested that the suspect may have been groomed by a trans-terror cell and that was perhaps working with a large group, including Antifa. So far, these claims have not been supported by publicly released evidence. Again, there's a problem with that. The internet. You can say whatever you want, for whatever you want, whenever you want. That's just kind of where we live. Oh, shout out to Friendly Chemist. Thank you for subscribing. Listen, guys, if you enjoy these conversations where we're not, jumping off the deep end and we're not trying to be extremists on either side, and where, we try to be mindful of what we're saying instead, just in case my mom watches this and then I have to have a 3-hour conversation where she tells me about why I should be doing better in life. Subscribe. I appreciate that. In fact, little is known about Robinson's politics. According to the charging document, his mother told investigators, we read that on another article, the dearth of information about Robinson's political views has suggested some researchers of online culture and shootings that there may not, in fact, be much more to Robinson's alleged violence than a single issue grievance. They say that one particular piece of information shared in the charging documents lends support to this theory. I saw this other person's page saying, and I get the, how they feel that way. When they say they pulled the text messages, all the text messages, all this, and it was straight up just about, it's how you talk to a significant other, how you talk to a significant other. It's playful, it's familiar, it's loving, it's pet names, it's inside jokes. There's an ease to the way you communicate with someone you've been with, someone you're in a relationship with. And the text message, someone was saying that the text message that they found, or that they publicly said, this is what's going on, they're like, yo, this seems completely fabricated. This seems completely fabricated. So I don't have those. I think it was getting a little too in depth to what may be fabricated or not. That's your opinion. You can go and find those. But changing gears, we'll talk about the Aisha Curry currently being once again in the news, right? And I only talk about this because I like Steph Curry. I like people that change the game. Right? When he came in and the underdog story, he wasn't supposed to be this talented. He wasn't supposed to be this good. And yet here he goes. Now everyone's shooting threes. Everyone's shooting threes from the locker room just because Steph Curry came and said, "Yo, man, it's possible." And it's possible to make a phenomenal career, to become, a champion, several times over for doing this. Then you get into the humble sort of nature of him, and sometimes when he turns that on and turns that off, and then he switches to that, baby face assassin. We love that. That's what our movies in the 80s and 90s. Those are the action movies. That's why we love Steph Curry. And I like how unbothered he usually is when it comes to his wife. The other part, I really like Killer Mike. I like his music. I like his activism. I don't have to necessarily agree with everything he says, but I like him. I like his sound. I like what he puts together. Especially Run the Jewels with him and LP. Forget about it, right? Forget about it. I've got favorite songs that there I'll probably listen to for years. I'll be the old man in the car, when his kids or his grandkids in there saying, what the hell are you listening to, right? After Killer Mike verbally attacked Ayesha Curry online for reporting embarrassing Steph Curry, then later backed her up. It all began when comedian Bookie Woods talked about one of Ayesha Curry's older marks on the Call Her Daddy podcast. Killer Mike later joined Woods to do the same NBA player, then hurried into the comment section to defend his wife. Once Steph Curry's went viral, his fans rushed to X to support the legend and criticize Mike's reply. So Steph Curry and his wife usually have been married for over 10 years. Curry's usually composed and elegant. Yeah. It all started when Ayesha Curry once publicly admitted that she reportedly pretended to be single a few years ago, after she saw a waiter without a shirt. She took off her wedding ring to make it seem like she was unmarried. She did that. Remember, I think it was on The View. For those of you that may watch The View, I don't watch The View, but I saw the clip of that when she was talking about doing something like that. And I get how people looked at that and said, if you did that, why would you publicly come on here and say something like that? Unprovoked, right? Unprovoked. I think that's what people usually had sort of issue with. After that, Ms. Curry was openly criticized by Woods for the remark. He claimed in his review that Ayesha Curry was reportedly dissatisfied with her marriage. He also said that she seems frustrated by her husband's popularity, liking her to rapper Glorilla. He added she wants to be a Glorilla or some ish. Like, we get it, bro. So in this sense, I get what he's saying, because I likened it to, say, Jada Pinkett Smith. And we all were happy to just kind of loosely remember her, like, out there, until she kept bringing her family's drama into our face. And we're like, yo, okay, this is happening. And then, when you're part of that, when you're a public figure to that degree, like Ayesha Curry, like Jada Pinkett Smith, and you have to be able and ready to take the criticism for the things that you put out. I think that's part of the social contract we have with celebrity. We get to critique parts of your life because we shower you with adoration, with money, with attention, right? Your life is largely built off the backs of that adoration. In her case, it's your lifestyle is built off Steph Curry. So when people hear you being critical of him, they're like, wait, you've got kind of like the perfect deal. So that sort of rubs and irritates people, right? So Killer Mike, a Grammy winner, then entered the chat and added his own comments. He said, "My N-word, she want to be glowed. Man, Steph doesn't deserve the embarrassment, for real. God bless him." Then Steph Curry condemned Mike for his remarks on Ayesha Curry and jumped to his wife's defense in the comments. He addressed Mike and said, "Killer Mike, nah, not you, Mike." You can see Steph Curry saying that, right? I'm cool staying silent. Letting those other clowns have their moment. And you're the worst of them, he's talking to Woods. But you're better than that, Killer Mike. Stay in your lane and let God keep blessing me like he is. We're good over here. I love that response. And to me, I think Killer Mike saying something like that, it's almost like it's just an offhand sort of reply to something like that. And you think you're praising, Steph Curry and say, yo, God bless him. And Steph Curry and Ayesha probably took it a different way. I see what Steph Curry's saying. I kind of expect better from Killer Mike, who has shown to be articulate, well-reasoned, and able to, basically ride that sort of line and understand where stuff is comical and when stuff is, should be walked with a tightrope. So I get what I'm saying. Yeah, I like you, and I think better of you than you to do something like this. So I get that what he's saying. And again, this is a great way to come to your wife's defense and say, yo, man, what she's doing is not bothering me. It's not bothering me. So why should it bother the rest of you? If it does, it does. But if I'm staying silent, and if people do come and talk to me and I'm unbothered with my wife, what she's saying, what she's doing, why does it bother us? That's probably the better question. Why does it bother us? If they're good, what business of it is ours? And I know, yes, we can and often should make comments about what these celebrities put on there. We've made them so that we've put them there. And maybe some people feel like, yo, Steph doesn't see it. Steph doesn't get it. He doesn't see it. I think, yeah, some stuff that she has said has been very, very, very much, yeah, I'm kind of disrespecting my husband and saying these things. But one of the things she was talking about on the Call Her Daddy podcast was, I never thought I'd be married this early. I wanted to be a career woman. And then this happened. That's a fair thing to say. That's a fair thing. This was my idea. This was my dream. My life then got interrupted. Even if that interruption is a great thing, this is really what happens to people. You have this idea, you have this plan, and reality kind of comes in and says, here it is. Can that be better than what you originally intended? Yes. But should you be frowned upon for saying it? Absolutely not, right? And even if it bothers him, that's not everyone's business. Absolutely, it's not everyone's business. You know, it's not everyone's business. If he's good, we all should be good. If he's still making threes, we all should be happy, right? If she wants to come out and say these things, then that's again, there's part of that where she's telling about, yeah, it's incredibly honest to say I was frustrated by my husband's, the attention that's being showered on my husband. I want that similar attention too. That's a hard and honest thing to say. Yeah, that's a hard and honest thing to say. And shout out for her saying it. I may not agree with a lot of stuff she does behind that, if that's the motivating thing. Sometimes we don't recognize what we have until it's absence. Then we're like, wow, I wish I could kind of, turn back time and get those things back, or really learn to appreciate it at that time. And the key to solving that, the key to never getting ourselves in that position, is to look forward or look at other people who have done that, who have had something, and then look back and say, and mess things up. If we had more honest conversations with each other and our life and our expectations and what happens and consequences of those, we'd probably be better off and save ourselves from making a lot of mistakes. Like TikTok is full with people with particularly in women saying, yeah, I should have never divorced my husband. I thought things would be better because my friend said this or that. In reality, things worked out very differently. So if you can have honest conversations with some of your friends that while you're in a relationship are single, if people were honest and said, I did this and I shouldn't have done this, but here we are, here's what's happening, then I think we'd see better results. On that note, I came across this article, Wall Street Journal, saying that when Kentucky changed its custody, the standard custody being 50-50, I think they said that divorce rates dropped 25%. I wanted to pull up and read from the article, but Wall Street Journal was charging it, and I was like, I don't want to pay that. But if I can find that somewhere else and actually do a video on that, I think that's an interesting topic. When you take away the incentive, you stop incentivizing divorce in the way that our system does, and maybe this is a lead up to some of that being changed. I think it's always a good way to show where we lean, how a political system works. Where if you're saying patriarchally, men are making the laws, and men have made laws on the books, divorce laws and child support laws. We've made that. So whatever happens from that, that's on us. We're eating that. Now we're saying it's unfair against men. It's unjust against men. Yet we have not came together to change it because men don't vote in the same, as the same block or as much as women do. So now our political system says, let me cater to the voting block that historically will show up and get me votes to get me where I want to be. And we as men, we're not paying attention and saying, oh, if we want to see these changes, we have to become said dense voting block. That's the only way you start getting things catered towards you, i.e. the last presidential election, when men said, yo, we're gonna vote this way. or we're not going to vote as you expected us. What happened? Now you had people coming and saying, oh, what's going on with the men? Why are you not falling in? What's going on? That's what you want to do as any type of, I don't say political party, but any type of group. You vote as a block, and then you go and say to whatever candidate, what are you going to do for us? Like they did with Biden. Student loan forgiveness was a big thing. You want the youth to vote for you? He promised to get rid of your student loans. So what happened? The youth showed up and voted for him. Did he live up to that promise? No. But that's the other problem with our politicians. So now to one of the things, in the title that I wrote about this, because I came across a video about being humble, and the woman in that, and I'll make the video. I'll try to post it for tomorrow morning, because I think it has a great point. And sometimes it's easier to see something said through someone else rather than you being the messenger, the deliverer of that message. And she was saying essentially like, yo, we're not all created equal. Right? And I know that fundamentally seems like a wrong thing to say, that we're not all created equal. We're all the same. We all have the same opportunities, the same chance. But she was saying like some of us are better than others. Right? Some of us are better. And in that sense, my spin on that, I'm saying some of us are better because of the choices we made, the work we put in, the level of effort we put in. That makes some people, in my eyes, better than others, especially when this work is available to everyone. I'm not saying that I get that there are different levels available to different people. You are subject to where your parents were, who your parents were when they had you, socioeconomically, right? You may not have the same chance, the same leg up, but in reality, in terms of work effort that you can put in, some people put in more work than others. Some people do, right? And I try to want to find myself on the side of people that will put in the work, to the point that I constantly have people, one of the moderators right here in the chat, who's constantly reminding me, you need to rest. And she's absolutely right. Do I listen? Probably not as much as I should. Like today is my one day off, and I'm out here trying to do more of this, right? Trying to get better at this craft. I try to treat this like a job. That doesn't leave a lot of room for going to bed. But I know it needs to happen. It doesn't leave a lot of room for making sure I'm hydrated, my nutrition, making sure all these things are there. But I'm trying to put in this level of work, this level of like just effort. That's what I'm trying to do. So does that make me better in that sense of work? Yeah, I want to be part of the group that says, yeah, we put in the work. So she's saying that it's all right not to be humble, right? And it made me start thinking about that word, humble, humility, right? Humility is not something, it's not where you think less of yourself, right? It's thinking of yourself less, right? If that sort of makes sense. I don't want to think, when I think about myself, I want to think about myself as someone that is here, that puts in that level of work, that's efficient, that has drive, that has ambition. But I don't want to constantly be the only thing I think about. In this sense, what I've noticed, just being a Black man in America, there are those same ceilings that are try to be placed on you that keep you where they say you should be. Like, again, linking that back to Patrice O'Neill. If you go and tout this line, or you go too far off where we expect you, where we've designated your lane, you're supposed to hit the ceiling. Like when you tell men to not be, to be confident, but don't be arrogant. Who determines that line of arrogance? Or is there a commensurate level of confidence you're supposed to have that lines up with the amount of success you've had? But we look at that and say, be all you can be, but keep quiet about it. I don't want you showing some of that stuff off. I don't want you going that far ahead and doing X, Y, and Z. I think it's fine for us to, especially now I'm speaking about myself, sometimes you have to level set. You have to see where the rest of the market is, where the rest of the amount of people, where they actually go out there and they where they are. What is the level of your competition? Because I find myself in this echo chamber of effort, where I'm competing with myself and competing with what I did last week or yesterday, and seeing how can I outdo that? How can I do more than I did before? To the point where I end up losing sight of the goal. That thing that I'm doing that I said would make me happy, I've already accomplished it. All right, I've already hit that. I've already done it. Yet I'm not happy yet. So I just end up doing more work, right? And that's part of that sort of trap. But I think I've been very, very cautious in terms of, trying to still be humble, not trying to be that person, not trying to be arrogant, not trying to be terrible, right? Or the worst of all of who we are. So I think it'll be an interesting video once I put it together. Looks, it really looks like you cleared out the chat. Well, thank you for being my moderator here, and this is sometimes how it goes. Yeah, so look out for that video. Shout out to Replay Game, because I think some of these things will be mostly for you guys. But again, it's good reps, it's good practice. So on to some other sadder news. Again, if you guys, I understand there was a time I was very much into the news, right? And very much into news, into stocks, into all these sort of things. And what ended up happening, I saw my mental health sort of deteriorating, right? I have one cousin, I call her my political cousin, and we would talk all the time. And she would call me like, you're like an ethical capitalist. And I used to, call her bleeding heart liberal, but we often find ourselves on the same side of a lot of things. So this story, again, sometimes I get why you take a step back. I get why you have to get a palate cleanse. I get why you have to step back and say, I can't do this. Oh, what's going on, Yanni? Thanks for stopping by. I saw you were live when I started this. I wanted to jump in and say something, but I still got a lot of work. This is get my practice going, trying to get as good as you with your lives. But we're going over some quick covering events. But this is a sad time you jumped in, so I mean, just sort of buckle up. So, family of Black student found hanging from a tree in Mississippi demands answers. And again, I get why some people take a break from the news. But there's some things that are happening that we have to stay informed about. We have to understand what's happening, because before you understand, it happens to you. It happens to someone you love. We know these things are occurring, and sometimes it's easy to put our head in the sand like an ostrich and just keep on moving, and just keep on moving. So this is Cleveland, Mississippi. At Delta State University on Wednesday, there were a few signs of tragedy that befell the campus this week and disrupted the beginning of a new school year. Students had been back on campus just shy of a month when the body of Demetravian Trey Reed, a 21-year-old Black student, was found hanging from a tree on campus Monday. Reed's death ignited cultural justice and online speculation that he was the victim of lynching, even though authorities have said there's no evidence of foul play. Families of other Black men who have been found hanging in Mississippi and were determined to have died by suicide are also questioning the official causes of death. Now, emotionally, you want to jump and say, yo, this is absolutely a lynching. This is absolutely something terrible. The unfortunate side effect of our poor men's mental health makes it a very easy narrative for authorities to say, you guys do kill yourselves. You guys do self-delete often. So it's easy to say this is just a statistic, ignoring the history that this place has of lynching Black men. All people are saying you really need to investigate this with open eyes, and sometimes it's best to call in, authorities from a different province, from a different county, to come and investigate stuff like this. And that usually happens when enough people make enough noise about some of this, right? That's what probably may need to be the thing. They say they believe their loved ones are victims of lynching in a state with a history of racially motivated violence, including the 1955 lynching of 14-year-old Emmett Till. And as we all are very familiar, when that lady years ago came out and said, yeah, he didn't do anything. Like he did absolutely nothing, and this is what happened. Reed Chandler is not publicly commented on his death except through attorneys. So again, this is sad news, but it is news nonetheless. And we continue with our little doom and gloom. Shout out to CGA. Pennsylvania authorities ID gunmen who killed 3 law enforcement agents. And again, we're going over this because it's important to understand what's happening around us. it's easy to just stay on the social media side and laugh at people's moments of stupidity, of try to use those as lessons and find out, yeah, this is what not to do. But I think just in trying to expand the space, we want to add some things like that, and I would love to use some of these lives to do that, especially as this place starts to fill out, and sometimes it's just kind of me talking to the replay gang. At least we can have something that you just put in your ear, go about your business, hit the play button. So the man who gunned down 3 detectives in central Pennsylvania had been wanted for allegedly stalking a former girlfriend and broke into her house before ambushing the lawman, authorities said Thursday. This is one of those situations where I think when stalking occurs, especially stalking when men are stalking women, sadly, a lot of what happens has already been reported to authorities. This man is doing this. This man is doing this, and we don't often take these things seriously until things go so far left. I think there was another article I saw about that where a woman was killed, and I think it happened in Florida, or maybe near Alabama, somewhere in that region, where the police were saying, "Yeah, we dropped the ball because there were so many calls about this leading right, and they didn't take it seriously. Proper notes weren't taken down, action wasn't done, follow-ups wasn't done, and what happens is you end up having someone killed, and that loss of life is just as important as someone like Charlie Kirk. We just can't say that doesn't matter because they didn't have that sort of political influence and those type of connections. It all matters. Law enforcement officers have been on the lookout for 24-year-old Matthew James Ruth in hopes of arresting him for alleged stalking, prowling, and trespassing, according to a criminal complaint filed on Wednesday. Matthew J. Ruth is the actor who fatally shot officers, York County DA Tim Barker told reporters on Thursday, vowing to never mention Ruth's name again. Yeah, that's a weird thing that we've tried to adopt with mass shootings, and not to say the person's name to give that person sort of attention and credence. I think it sounds good, but it doesn't really accomplish anything. When you look, not just the history of religion, but recent assassination incited more violence. Again, I don't think that a place like that can get away with just saying, "Yeah, it's regular suicide." There's no foul play. Walk me through everything that you found, right? Oh, what's going on from Oregon? Walk me through everything that you said, everything that you said, everything that you saw, everything that you found. I want to hear it all. Just don't tell us there's no foul play. By whom? Does this person have a history of looking up lynchings? No, I need to know the exact same, give me the details, right? The prosecutor called this result of the hateful scourge of domestic violence. Domestic violence usually goes left, right? And officers often are very remiss, very careful when it comes to domestic violence situations because things are so emotionally charged, right? And this is not a thing to put on a gender. You see a lot of those videos exist today, men being just as or more so emotional, and then that usually is when men who typically didn't grow up with the proper boundaries or with a father in the house that tend to let their emotions get the better of them. I used to think, and I still hold this sort of notion, that a father's role in the house, right, is for a young man to buck up against and hit that immovable wall and fail. When that physical prowess starts happening with the juice of puberty, the juice of testosterone flowing through you, you need to go to that spot and say, wow, I could not do anything. I could not overcome this man with physical force. And then there's the presence that is real. My father used to be able to look at us, right? Look at us and get the truth from us. Just stare at us. And then all the guilty things that you did, all the questionable activities will bubble to the surface. And there was this confession that would just come. This is confession. And you're just like, damn, how'd you do that? But I remember I learned early that it's easier to just do the thing, right? Than come up with a dozen excuses why I didn't do it because I just wanted to, say, play video games or have fun or do something else. I realized it was easier for me to do my homework, get it out the way, get it done, than to come up with an excuse why I didn't do it. So I remember I was 13 and I'd hit the growth spurts, and I was like Bambi, right? And just your first time you're born and your legs all akimbo and you hit this growth spurt and even your knees would like knock every time I like bent them. And I would get accustomed to it. And then it would be, a week or month or 3 months later, and it happens again, knocky knees and the growth spurt. So I think I was like 12, 13 years old. And my father said I did something and he gave me the stare. Gave me the stare. I remember looking right back at him, right? And I finally realized I'm taller than you, right? I'm taller than you. But I would never think to have like bucking up against my father and using physical violence to do anything against him. But I remember staring back at him, looking and holding his gaze, right? The testosterone juices was flowing through me, right? I was like, nah. And it helped that I actually didn't do anything. So that was the last time the stare was used on me, right? The if anyone's familiar again with Marvel, with Frank Castle, not Frank Castle, Ghost Rider, whichever iteration of Ghost Rider you like. I'm old school, so it's a Johnny Blaze for me. With the penance stare to hit you with, and you're like, ah. And the confusion was because eventually in different timelines, or further down the line, Frank Castle becomes like the Cosmic Ghost Rider. So look it up, right? If you looked at me and say he's not really a fan because he's getting these things wrong. Anyway, that stare no longer worked because like, no, this is not what. But that's the point of having a father in the house. There's a physical outlet, even if there isn't physical outlets. That's the high joker in the house. What he says is not a thing you can question. It's not a thing that you can outmuscle. That is it right there. Respect for your parent is supposed to have the thing that keeps you from, resorting to physical violence, and that is something that if they've done right, they've instilled that in the wider world. And back then it was easier. There wasn't so much influence in your life. So you didn't have so many incidents. Now, when you don't have a father, you don't have that physical thing. Boys who are going down that path realize very quickly that they are stronger than their mom. They are the strongest one in that house, and that doesn't bode very well for our psyche. We need to have the stopgap. We need to have that thing that says you can't go further as you are. It's time to go back, reevaluate, get better at whatever it is, then move forward. That's a thing. I think men are very, 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 very good at. So that my little segue into growing up with my dad, who again was more was more of an academic than a tyrant. He got a full scholarship from Nigeria, while in Nigeria, to go to MIT. So if you think I'm eloquent, you think I'm intelligent, you just put that both of my parents. I remember one thing. I'll tell the story and then I'll jump off to the next topic. One thing I remember asking my father, like, where's your degree? Right? Where's your MIT degree? It's not on the wall or anything, right? He was never that type of guy, but he was very proud of his accomplishments. So I think for one of his birthdays, my brother bought him like Jordans. And if anyone's got Jordans before, they come in that little cute little briefcase, right? Open up. He opens this thing up, and again, it's touching that he had that. And I am now the holder of said container. Since my father passed, we all said, I want this, I want this. Immediately I called dibs on a degree. So he opens up this little thing, and in it is just, here's my folded up degree in the little booklet they give you from MIT, just like here, there it is, right? His master's that he got from MIT. Then he shows us the master's he got from NYU. And then all these other awards and accolades, and just like, this is there. So even in my apartment, I don't have my degrees up. I don't know where my master's degree is. It just became not an important thing. It's like you do the thing and you just move on. So last topic we'll do today is about, and if it's this, we're trying to add more money talk into this program, into this channel. And our boy Jerome Powell finally cut the interest rate. But what does that really mean, right? What does that mean to people? What does it mean to your life? The Federal Reserve on Wednesday delivered its first rate cut since December. A move that will ripple through everything from home loans to credit cards. Not really credit cards, although not all Americans know the change in the same time. So depending where you are in your life, in your financial life and what your financial goals are, this may mean something to you. This may be awful for you. We're going to divvy up and say where you fall. Right? The Fed cut reduces its federal funds rate, what banks charge each other for short-term loans, by 1/4 point, shaving its target range between 4% and 4.25, down from its prior range from 4.25 to 4.5. Numbers, right? Just follow along. Though incremental, the policy turn is significant. Fed officials foresee 2 additional cuts in 2025. That's this year. There's not a lot of time left in this year, but that's this year. And one more in 2026. A trajectory that could lower rates by a full percentage point and lighten the load for millions of borrowers. So the Fed cuts the rate. That means your loans that you may, if, again, this is where you fall. If you're looking to buy something, if you're looking to buy a house, to purchase a car, there's a cost to borrow the money for that. That's the interest rate. If your interest rate is high, and we had a video where a guy had something like a 20% interest rate on a vehicle, I think on a Hellcat, and was paying $1,250 a month, working at Amazon, making said $2,000 to $3,000 or maybe $3,000 to $4,000 a month. His interest rate is through the roof, so it cost him more money to borrow that money. Now, when you look at it in terms of borrowing money for most people, in most people's cases, at one point in time, they want to own a house, place to live, and you need a mortgage for that. So if the interest rate is higher, it's going to cost you over the life of a loan, 15 years, 30 years, it's going to cost you more money for that house. That's why it depends where you are. Some people in this economic time, they are not looking to buy a house. But there are other people who have been on the sidelines waiting for the Fed to cut the rate so they then can move in and start purchasing homes. In terms of homes, we have a glut of homes that, depending on your area, they're sellers. When you look at our cohort and when people are looking to retire or they want to sell their home, take the profit, and go overseas or simply downsize. Many people bought homes with an aggressively low interest rate. If you have something in a 2 to 3%, you were basically held hostage in your home. And what do I mean by that? Because you had such an aggressively low rate, if you sold and bought something else, your rate was going to be 5 or 6, or at a time, maybe even 8%. It would cost you more money for the house, for your new house. Maybe we're talking anywhere from just a couple $100s a month on your mortgage, or a couple extra thousands a month on your mortgage. So people say, I hate my house, right? It's too small for my existing family, but I can't leave. I can't leave because I can't find this rate anywhere else. If I could transfer this rate somewhere else, you see a lot more movement. But no. So again, if you're in that place where you were looking to buy a house, this is great news for you. This is great news for you, right? And especially with the forecast of Jerome Powell, who stubbornly fought against the pressure put on from the president, because the Fed chairman is not subject to the whims of the president. He's not appointed by the president. He already knows he's not going to be reelected to the Fed chair. He's not going to be appointed to the Fed chair again. It's not going to happen. So he gets to do exactly what he wants to do. Fair. But indicating there's going to be 2 more cuts, probably 2025, 2026. People who have been on the sidelines, that have been stacking their money, they're ready to buy a house. This is great news for them. Now, if you're saving money, say in a savings account or a high yield savings account, you're going to see your interest rate that they've been paying you every month for your money just being parked there. You're going to see that reduce. That's the bad news. If you were enjoying record high 4 to 4.5, 3.5 to 4.5 interest rates when you're saving, you're not going to see that. That's going to be reduced. I would guess we'll probably see something about the average being from 3.25 to 3.5. Still better than what we were traditionally getting, 0.01% in your traditional savings account. So if you got money that's just parked there and sitting there, same thing with CDs. That rate will probably reduce. And if you hurry, if you have money that you have no interest on touching in the next 5 years, if you hurry before Jerome Powell cut the rate yesterday. You'll see that change affect banks probably by today's Friday, probably by Monday. If you want to open a CD account and stash money there and lock in today's rate, that would probably be the move. But given the time of this, it's probably a little too late for that. But that's what the rate means for a lot of Americans in different places in your life. I think it's something important to pay attention to, especially for those of us that are moving into or now looking down the hill of retirement. Like, retirement is the goal. It's now a feasible, reachable thing. The hill is when you started your career and you were just slowly trudging up, and now you get to look and say, "Oh, that's where we're going to go. That's where we're going to end up." So again, it's an important thing to pay attention to. All of these things today, important things to pay attention to. But sometimes I get it. It's hard. You don't want to sift through some of that nonsense, some of that rhetoric. So just let me do it for you, right? Come on back, subscribe to the channel. Shout out to Replay Gang whenever you guys do see this. And for the new people that came in and commented and said, said something, thank you for that. For those that came in and said some negative-ish before you were timed out or kicked out, good luck to you, right? I hope life gets better for you. That's it, right? I will not go to bed thinking about you guys, right? Shout out to my moderator doing the hard work of kicking them out. If you care enough and want to be a moderator, reach out, email me. If you want to actually support this channel in those important ways, again, subscribe. I'm not asking for your money, but if you want to donate to the channel, there's super chats. There's plenty of ways to do that. And again, shout out to Replay Game. I hope you guys enjoyed this. And if you want to see more of this, just like it, right? That's the easiest way for me to know whether or not this is something that I should continue creating. That's the same thing that goes for all content creators, everywhere. Your attention is valuable, and I thank you for sharing that right here with me. So before I sign it off, if you guys are in the chat, you want to say something or you want me to respond to something, I know there is a bit of delay, but feel free to write anything now before I go. And I know, again, there's a little bit of delay, so I give you guys a couple seconds to see what it is. Besides that, I got to look at the schedule and see when I could put on another live stream, one with the bells and whistles, where we go with our segments, with our music. We just try to have a good old time. But again, I like to do these to try to decrease the gap between myself and the subscribers. It's hard sometimes finding the right time to do these because it's Friday, and depending on the time zone, depending where you guys are, you guys have lives, you guys have children, you have social lives, you have things you want to do. And there may be other people that you pay attention to their live streams. And again, I'm a new channel, just over 3 months. So I know I got to pay my dues. I'm going to make these. I'll talk to the wall if need be, but shout out to Replay Gang. I'll see you guys on the next one.